Today we're going to be talking about your identity. Are you actually who you believe you are? How to deprogram it. As all these geese fly through. These geese just are who they are. They're not worried about protecting identities like humans. Yeah, it's interesting how humans are the only animals that actually have this whole delusional imagined concept about themselves that has nothing to do with what we are at our base. But that's more of a city thing. But collectively, humanity still is lost. Anyway, identities. You're not who you believe you are. Who you believe you are is basically a collection of experiences you've had. A lot of these experiences are, well, I wasn't going to say arbitrary, but technically everything happens for a reason. But even though it is happening for a reason, it doesn't still mean we shouldn't be striving to be closer to a state of perfection. So a lot of the experiences you've had have been negative and have programmed your identity or your perception of yourself and life, because the perception you have of the world is kind of a mirror of the perception that you have of yourself oftentimes. Because they say in metaphysics you project out your reality, right? You're projecting out your reality. So if you have an imbalance or a blockage, or your perception is skewed within yourself because of some negative experience or some negative energy or trauma you're carrying, then you're going to perceive the world through that lens and act accordingly. So for example, if you were a kid in school and you didn't like to obey the teachers or the yard duty people at recess, and you were just disobedient, they would bench you or send you to the principal's office or whatever they would do to you, try to project onto you that you're a bad kid, that you're just a troublemaker, or whatever kind of word they would attach to you. And you'd go through life carrying this perception, oh, I'm a troublemaker, and the painful memories of being sent to the principal's office and the shame of it, telling your parents about it and all that stuff. And then that sticks with you, and that kind of becomes part of your identity, who you are. And then maybe later in life you become a criminal because you believe that's who you are, as a troublemaker. So the point of saying all that is to say, no, he was just an innocent kid, and well, not in all cases. I mean, there are such a thing as demons, but most cases, just an innocent kid, and he just didn't want to comply with whatever program was being presented to him. These programs are basically arbitrary most of the time. It's just how the powers that be decided to structure their world for their own benefit. And so if you don't want to comply with those powers that be, then they attach all sort of bondage to you, all sort of binds, starts mentally and emotionally. They basically do a ritual to you, sending you to the principal's office, sitting you on the bench, making you fill out some sort of detention form, whatever you're going to do. And of course this translates to the prison system or the criminal justice system later in life. Basically for them to do a ritual to you to make you believe that you are somehow less than, or somehow unworthy, or just some sort of lowly scoundrel troublemaker. Does that make sense? That's just one example. There are many. Someone could have projected onto you that you're ugly. Someone could have also projected onto you that you're beautiful. It just depends. Now, if you've read the Four Agreements, you know the power of words. Words are spells. Spells define your reality. Words are spells. God created the world with the word in the Bible, right? So God created the world with the word. So you're creating your reality with your word. You're programming your perceptions with the word. You're emitting light with your word. And this light shoots out and then comes back to you. So if you agree with someone else's word or spell they're projecting onto you that you're this way or that way, now becomes your reality. You then internalize that as your reality. Now when you're a kid, you're essentially defenseless against adults' words being projected at you, because you're just a kid. You don't have the same sort of worship or mentality. Your mentality is not as hard as the adults, because the adults have more experience in this reality, at least in this incarnation. They have more experience, so they're going to be able to go harder with you. They're also physically bigger and intimidating by default. Now the issue, it wouldn't be so much of an issue if you were just born into reality already as an adult. But since you're born into reality as a kid, and you're most sponge-like and your mind is most malleable as a kid, you basically absorb your childhood as your default perspective of yourself, which then becomes your identity, which you then take with you later on into life. So if you had a messed up childhood, and we all did to various degrees, because no one in this world is perfect, especially not the social structures created by the powers that be. And then you have all kind of chaos within that, bullies, etc. So then this skews your perspective of life and yourself and your identity. And then basically everything we do as humans is to try to preserve our identity, because not just doing, but being something different than we believe we are. That's kind of one of the scariest things for us. Like, what if I'm not who I think I am? And truthfully, we're all just spirits encased in matter in this flesh body. So to even identify with any emotions or thoughts, which are just visitors passing through this vessel, is foolish, right? Obviously, how you think and feel when you're 19 is going to be different than when you're 79. Obviously, right? Goes without saying. So your identity of life is going to change by default, but the starting point and the base of it is in childhood. So sometimes in order to really break free of our mental bondage, we have to kind of undo the traumas we experienced in childhood. Now, there are various ways to do this. Plant medicine is a great way, mushrooms, ayahuasca, things like this. I mean, if you just meditate enough, you can eventually kind of get into it. Some people like to write it out and burn it. There are various ways. The shamans do it with an exercise called recapitulation, where essentially you just go back in your mind, reliving, embodying every experience you ever had, but just, obviously focus on the ones you can remember the most, which is oftentimes the most recent ones, and just go in the ones that you can go into most detail on in your memory. And then you just sort of breathe from side to side, going over these experiences in your mind. And the goal is to, in reliving these experiences, you're basically creating a portal in time to when you actually did experience those things in the past. So essentially you're erasing the past by creating a portal, a mind link to where you were in the past, and experiencing those things again with the intent of releasing them. Now you're going to be able to, and experiencing those things again in that portal to the past with the intent of releasing them, it creates the opportunity to let go of those energetic burdens or blockages or filaments of light or energy that have came into your energy body during those events in space-time. And then also to take back whatever light or elements was lost from you in those interactions. So the shamans call this recapitulation. I've done a certain amount of recapitulation, a certain amount of plant medicine, a certain amount of writing out my past, all in an effort to release it. Now, why go through all that effort? Because I felt that my identity or my emotional structure was limiting me greatly from being all that I could be. And so I've been trying to get to the source or the root of why it's like this inside myself. And so in doing a certain amount of, ayahuasca itself forces you to recapitulate, forces you to face all your demons and traumas you picked up within yourself by default. And the reason I went through all this stuff, because I want to be free. We all want to be free. We're not free. We have these mental and physical binds and emotional binds that limit us. It's like a mental cage. And so in doing all these exercises, the thing I've experienced, my conclusion so far has been that we're so much more than we think we are. And all these things that we identify ourselves as, our job, our school, our social standing, even like basic personality type is not even who we are. That's not who we are. We're so much more. We're infinite. We're cosmic. And when I go back deep enough into my mind, I realize all these things I identified myself as are arbitrary and limiting. It's not, it's very surface level. It's just shallow. It's not the totality of truth. It's just what someone else wanted me to be. My parents, the educational system, all of that. And to break these bonds obviously takes a lot of energy, right? Which then goes into the impeccability of the warrior. All right, my phone ran out of storage, so I'm just gonna do a second part in this series, posting tomorrow. Basically finishing off my thoughts about decoding the matrix and transforming the identity. So stay tuned. Have a great day, everyone.